Hello and welcome to another episode from the water's edge. Now you catch up with us on a bit of a mad dash. We've had a change of plan. We've actually already been out fishing this morning. We actually went perch fishing. We had a bit of inspiration to catch a big perch, but to be honest with you, it really hasn't gone to plan. It's one of those ones where if you're an angler you'll know it just didn't feel right. I can't put my finger on what it was, but something wasn't right. And although we had one early on, about a pound or so, it just wasn't going to happen. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So what we done is we packed all the gear in the car. We had a quick pit stop at the local tackle shop, and we're now heading out to a stretch of river to try and catch a chub. The stretch we're heading to is a Ledgering bridge stretch, which we have fished before in the summer and had a few fish, but the river in the winter is a completely different river, and I think the whole country at the moment has been suffering from floods. So I'm not sure what it's going to be like when we get down there. I'm not sure what the condition's going to throw at us, but I am determined to catch a fish that's good enough for camera before this day is the end. So let's hope all this effort will give us the rewards. We've got about 5 minutes left of travelling, and then we'll see if we can't have a fish or two. Well, we finally made it down to the end of the stretch. Now if you've seen our video before in the summer, this is where we actually started, and the first video in the summer we had the biggest fish from here at just under £6. It's all the way right down the bottom end of the bridge stretch, and to be honest with you, I'm quite pleased with how the river's looking. It looks nice. I expect it to be worse than this. I expect there to be quite a lot of debris floating down it, to be probably over the banks, but I'm actually really quite impressed with this, and it's given me a little bit of hope that we may catch. Now we haven't got too long. As we said, we've already been out fishing this morning, so this is literally trying to be hopefully a smash and grab situation, a couple of fish early doors, and we'll be really happy. With that in mind, we kept things simple with the rigs. We've literally just got a sliding gripper lead at 1.5 ounces, should be holding in this current I would say, onto, I don't know, about a foot hook link. It's fluorocarbon, nice and stiff, but also very hard for the fish to see. And that's just going to be on their hair rigged boilies, 2 10mm with a bit of pace around it. That's going to be ideal because it's quite a big bait, big smells. With the water this coloured, we want quick action. That's going to be the way we're going forward. So I'm just going to get this rig baited up and then we'll get it in the swim. Right, well, that's all ready to go. Luckily this swim is just a nice, really underarm cast just into some slack water under this bridge, exactly where we had that fish before in the other video, and hopefully there's going to be one in there now. I'm just going to get this bank stick in, try and make as least noise as possible when you're doing this, especially when you're fishing close in. You really do want to be careful, so we'll probably just flick this out with them 2 boilies and that pace you just see. We'll give it probably 10 or 15 minutes. If not, we're just going to swim, hop back up the river and back to the car park. But this is going to be the first swim, and hopefully it's going to be first time lucky. It's gone in there nicely, just under the bridge. And we're just going to have it on the rest. I'm not going to have a seat. I'm just going to kneel on the unhooking mat for now. Like I said, we're going to be nice and mobile. So we ain't going to be anywhere for too long. No need to bring mountains and mountains of stuff with you. Let's see what happens now. Now, and unfortunately we've had no rattles or taps, so it doesn't look like it's going to be first time lucky, but I'll promise you one thing, if I don't catch a fish on camera today, it's not going to be through lack of trying. So I think it's about time we moved on. There's some nice swims still further upriver that we've got to go, so you never know, there still could be a fish in this day for us yet. Now, the next swim we're going to is not actually too far, it's just far up there, and there's a nice overhanging willow, and that's the sort of things you're looking for when chub fishing. I mean, this one screams out because there's a bridge going over. Although we haven't caught it today, there's always fish coming out in situations and swims like this. So that's what we're looking for as we work back up the river, is overhanging trees, sort of slack water areas, bridges going over, anything that you think would hold a fish or two is where you want to be putting a bait. Now, as I said, we're not building a swim up with like a maggot feed or anything, we're putting in a relatively large bait and we're putting it where we think fish are going to be, and that's the way to attack, and that's the way normally to get a quick bite. So we're not going to ponder on this too long, we'll get this rod in and I'm going to move on to the next swim. Well, we have finally connected with a fish. We didn't have anything in that willow, but persistence has paid off. We moved one swim higher, and although this is really fast here, over the far side is slack, so I've just stood here with a rod in my hand. Oh, it's a chub, it's a nice chub. Just get this in if we can. Just stood there with a rod in my hand and felt for the bite, and it's literally almost ripped it out of my hands. It's a really nice fish. Let me just see if we can get him in first. Strong current here. Get in. Yes, he does. Now that maybe not the biggest fish I've ever caught, but it's certainly one of the most that I've worked for. I'm really, really chuffed with that. At least we've got something on camera today. Let's get him on the mat and we'll have a look at him. And that is a proper chub. Well, here he is. Sorry everything's a bit of a mess, but we literally have just got in this swim. And that is a proper chub. It's a bit all tangled up. Let's see if we can... 2 sauce boilies hanging out of his mouth. Just nick that hook out. Well hooked, he wasn't coming out. But that is magic on a day like this when you have to work really hard for it. Doesn't come better than that. I'm going to quickly whip the scales on him, see how big he is. I haven't zeroed the net yet, so we'll do that afterwards. Just make sure he's safe in there. He's about 5'8" with the net, so he's not going to make £5. Net, I would imagine, is probably 10 ounces or so, so we'll check it in a minute, but I reckon he's just under 5. Cracking fish though. A bit like when I was a kid watching the old Rex hunt, this one deserves a kiss. Get in there. I'm just probably going to take him one swim on because it's a bit better place to put him back. Let's get that done now. Here we are. I can get ever so slightly closer to the water here, so a bit of a better place to let him go. Let's just... There we are. One last look at him. Cracking fish in the evening sun. Let's just hold him there while he goes back. That didn't take much encouragement. What a cracking sight. Well, we're in the next swim now, a little bit more chilled out and relaxed after we've actually put a fish on the bank. I thought it's probably a good time, although we did look at it earlier, we just sort of skirted over the rigs we were using. And now, like I said, we've had a fish, it's all chilled out a bit. I think it's probably a bit of a better time to go through it in more detail. So we'll start off with a rod. We've got a 1.25 pound Avon rod with a fairly stiff quiver tip in there. Like I said, this water is pushing through fairly hard, so we need to make sure it's man enough, and we're pulling fish out of all sorts of trees and snags, so it needs to have a bit of a backbone. So we've got 8 pound reel line, and then we come down to the rig that I've nicely just dropped. As we said, now at the moment we're holding with an 1.5 ounce gripper lead. Now it's quite important to have a gripper lead. One thing, it holds a bit better, and second of all, we've got a neat little trick with that when we bait up, which we'll show you in a moment. That comes onto a Corbin quick change bead, nice and simple to change your hook link. And talking about hook links, we've got an 8 pound fluorocarbon hook link. Now fluorocarbon is nigh on invisible when it goes into the water, so it's great for chub, where they're spooky, hard to catch, really is good. And then we just got a fairly strong specialist with a micro barb on there. We don't want to be losing anything once we've actually finally managed to hook it onto a hair rig. Now on the bait choice, the actual bait we're using is 2 Source 10mm. The only reason I've picked these is because it is the bait we used last time we caught on it, so I'm a big believer of if you find something out, then why change from it if it worked last time? So it's worked again. So 2 of those are going onto a hair, just nicely clipped on. Bait stop. Now on top of that, we're adding krill paste, and that smells really good to me. If I was a fish, I'd eat it, and it is really sticky and thick. So in this water, as long as it sits in there, this actually sticks really well, but releases the smell slowly going down all the while. So what we do is flatten that down, mould it around your 2 bodies. I do leave my hook free, because I just like to think, like I said, this paste is fairly stiff. I wouldn't like to be mastering my hook points or anything. And that moulds around into a fairly large bait. Now don't worry about the size of your bait. Chub have got huge mouths, so don't worry about anything like that. And that should be good to go. So I'm just going to drop this in this swim here. Bit of a jungle with trees all round. We're just going to flick it in the slack water close to us on this near side. Let's get that done now. Well, that bait's gone in there nicely. We just sort of cast it on the edge into the fast water, and it's going to swing round on a fairly tight line right underneath that overhanging tree that's sitting there. I'm sitting nice and close to my rod. As I said, we're in snags. We don't want to be fish getting in there, and you need to be on these bites. They're pretty good, believe me or not. They are really good. Hopefully we'll be able to show you one, but they just rip it off the rest. So it's in that slack water underneath that tree. We'll give it about 10 or 15 minutes as we did in the first 2. Well, it's all been quiet really since that last fish. I've dropped in probably 2 or 3 other swims just along to my left there now, but unfortunately no joy, not even any rattles or anything, so no indication of any fish there apart from that one that we dropped on. I've got one left to try before we go home. We're starting to lose the light, temperature dropping a little bit, so I'm not sure if we're going to get one, but as I said, one more swim, so I'm going to head up there and see if we can winkle one more. Well, the rig's in there. I'm just going to flick a couple of broken boilies just down there. Fishing under a willow again. The sort of oil boils underneath it really, so food particles and stuff's going to get washed up there. So hopefully it's a nice place for the chub to sit. We'll probably give it 10 or 15 minutes, if not we are going to call it a day and head back, but you never know. One last ditch effort before we take the camera away. Well, as you can probably see, the fact that we're back in the car now indicates that that last swim didn't produce another fish, unfortunately. But for me, although it's been a really hard day, it's also been an enjoyable day. The perch fishing didn't go quite as well as we planned this morning, but the idea to change and switch tactics to see if we can have a chub on the river produced a lovely 5.5 pound fish. So very rewarding, great day's fishing. I'm now heading home to get in the warm and have some tea. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.